Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class, we will learn how an ERQ is marked according to the 5 criteria which are given in the mark scheme. So, criteria A to E. I'm taking an essay for paper 1 in this video. Previously, also, I have covered how you can write essays in many lessons, which you will find on the IB playlist in this channel. Today I have taken a CLOA topic for paper 1 because, as I have mentioned in one of my previous videos in which I covered models of memory essay, most students prepare CLOA for paper 1 ERQs. So I think most of you would be preparing for schema theory, so it will be very relevant to you. Regardless of whether you're preparing for CLOA or not, whatever marking principles I show in this video using this essay as an example will help you across all options. So even if you're writing an essay from BLOA, which even I have covered on my channel, or say you're taking SCLOA, or for that matter, even if you're looking for help for your paper 2 ERQs, no matter which option you're doing for paper 2, the marking principles will remain the same. So this video should help all IB students who are watching, SL or HL. Also, I will not be going through the content of the answer very thoroughly, only as is required for marking. So many of you, it will be helpful for you if you read the essay properly before starting with this video. What I'll do is I'll link a copy of this essay, a PDF copy on my website, and I will link it in the description box and pinned comment below. So you can download the PDF first, you can go through the essay, or you can keep it alongside in this video. And anytime you're not understanding what I'm saying, you can just read through that part of the essay, and then you'll be able to understand better how I'm marking off the essay. So in this video, I have an essay in front of me, which one of my students has prepared after discussing with me in the class. This is a top scoring student, so definitely we have a good essay in front of us, one that will reach the high mark band. So for every criteria, how this essay is achieving that mark band is what I want to show to you. Okay, so let's begin looking at this essay. When it comes to schema theory, definitely you have to begin by defining what a schema is. In general, if you look at criterion A, you are required to address the problem in the question. Explicitly, they have mentioned that you have to explain the problem in the question. The first part of explaining the problem is defining the key concepts in the question. Now, before we can define schema theory, we have to define what a schema is. So the first good thing about this essay, why it will score well, is there is a proper definition of schema, and an example is given to very precisely explain further what a schema is. So that is one merit of this essay. You can definitely read the definition. Just to show you what comment I have made here, this is the comment. So there is a definition and an example. When I upload the PDF of this answer, I will include my comments also. So if you need to look at the comments continuously as I'm explaining, you can open the PDF copy with you in front of you as you're going through this video. Okay, now one mistake many students make when it comes to the schema answer is to just define what a schema is and to not define what the schema theory is. I hope you realize that schema and schema theory is different, because when I point this out to many students, they are surprised. Like I tell them, where's your definition of schema theory? They tell me, but I have defined a schema. Schema is a concept. It's a cognitive process of using past information to process incoming information. Schema theory uses schemas to explain how we organize, process, and remember information. These are two different things. You can think of schema as the base concept and schema theory as the explanation which is using schemas to explain a lot of mental processes. So make sure that you explain both, as in is done in this answer. So schema theory has also been defined, and both are important to define in this answer. So it is good that both schema and schema theory have been defined. Now I'll tell you what are the common mistakes when it comes to criterion A. One is to simply restate the question. In fact, even recently, many students have told me that our teachers are telling us you just have to restate the question for the introduction. I also strongly advise that you have the IB psychology guide in front of you when you're watching this video. Clearly, you will see under criterion A, it has been written that students have to go beyond simply rewriting the question, which is then an assertive statement, or simply defining the concepts which are there in the question, to explaining the problem in the question. The problem is simply discuss schema theory. Many students fail to see what is the problem. You can think of the problem as schema theory is a very broad theory in psychology. Some of you must be learning about reconstructive memory, how that is related to schema. So one of the things that schema theory explains is reconstructive memory. Some of you must be learning how schemas explain encoding of information. Some must be learning retrieval, some both encoding and retrieval. Some of you must be learning about various types of schemas which are there, social, personal, cultural. Some of you must be learning about stereotyping, how that is related to schemas. There are so many different things that you could be learning about schema theory. The question is asking you discuss schema theory. So the problem is, which aspects of schema theory are you going to cover in the essay? Which are those things or concepts which are explained by schema theory that are relevant to your essay? When you explain that, you are explaining the problem in the question. So what we've seen right now, whatever is highlighted here, that's just part of explaining the problem. Like that's just defining the key concepts. The next part of explaining the problem is outlining what is going to come in this particular essay. Another way of thinking about is the examiner has to read so many different essays. Some students are going to cover some aspect of schema. Some other students are going to cover some other aspect. How does the examiner know which aspects you are going to cover? So that is what you need to outline precisely but clearly in the introduction to score high on criterion A. So here you can see an example of how you can outline what is going to come. For example, in this essay, it is mentioned that the essay is first going to discuss the role of schema in reconstruction of memory. That means the first argument is clearly defined. What is an argument? Students sometimes get confused with the use of the term argument. Argument just means a point that you're trying to make or a claim. Argument does not mean you have to fight for something. Argument is just what are you talking about with relevance to the question asked. So here it becomes clear that this essay is going to talk about influence of schema in reconstructive memory. So the first argument is clearly identified. It's explaining the problem in the question. Next, as you know, you also need to have research evidence for support. That's criterion C. You clearly have to elaborate on some studies at least to clarify your arguments. So in the essay outline, it is clearly mentioned here that it's going to be Bartlett's War of the Ghost study, which is going to be used to support the first argument. Again, this is very helpful because it shows that which study is supporting argument 1. Of course, you don't need to elaborate on these things. It's only the introduction after all, so you can't give everything right here. But the good thing is that everything is being outlined for the examiner. Then in the same way, argument 2 has been presented, which is about how schemas influence encoding and retrieval stages of memory. I want you to notice how argument 2 is different from argument 1. It's not overlapping with the first one. A relevant thing that I've come across here, many students are telling me that in their schools they've been asked to give arguments and counter arguments. There is no such compulsion in the IB that you have to only give a counter argument or whatever argument you've given first, the second one has to oppose that. It could be a complementary argument. It could just be a different argument altogether showing some other aspect of the theory. That's fine. Just avoid giving only one argument. Again, there's no hard and fast rule of how many arguments, claims or points you should give. But ideally, giving only one, why I discouraged that is because essays end up becoming very repetitive. If you look at criterion C, it's clearly specified that you shouldn't give too many pieces of research which are going on supporting the same argument. When you give only one argument, you inevitably end up giving a lot of research which is just supporting that one argument. So to avoid that problem, I would suggest don't give only one argument. Secondly, then should you give more than two arguments or as many arguments as possible? That ends up making the student sacrifice depth for breadth. Like you touch upon many things, you don't really explain and show your understanding of anything. One thing you'll notice consistently in all the criteria is that you need to explain things, you need to show your understanding of things. When you take a breadth approach, see, I know so much, I can touch upon this and that, but you don't go into the depth of anything. You don't really show your understanding. You really just show that you know a lot of facts. So I would say two arguments is a really good rule of thumb to follow. Follow it as much as possible. That's the ideal number of arguments you should have. So in this essay, you can see a second argument is given. Which study is going to support that is clearly outlined. Okay, so this has been repeated. Like argument 1, same thing repeated for argument 2. Really clarifies what's going to come ahead. After this, it's also mentioned that schema theory itself is going to be evaluated. In the sense that schema theory is going to be evaluated, of course, in light of these essays. As you know, for criterion C, I'll explain further ahead. You don't have to only evaluate the studies unless the question is very specifically evaluate the studies for schema theory. Here it's discuss schema theory. So you do not have to evaluate the studies for their own sake, but to evaluate schema theory as at large. So here you can see it's clearly mentioned schema theory is going to be evaluated in light of these researches, and then a critical analysis of the theory itself will be included. No doubt we are making two arguments and we will analyze them. But there's so much more to schema theory. There's so many other strengths and weaknesses beyond these arguments that we can consider for schema theory. At least we should give one or two more. Like our evaluation should not be only restricted to the studies that we are giving. What else is there to schema theory? For a command term like discuss, we must include that also. An overall evaluation of the concept or theory in question. So here, it's a very good thing that analysis of schema theory will be done. This is also identified. So this also counts as a merit of the introduction. Finally, what will come up in the conclusion, that is also outlined. All the arguments are going to be summarized and direction for future research will also be presented. So that's what the conclusion is going to look like. So far, whatever we have seen in the introduction, you can think of it as you're giving a preview to the examiner of what is going to come in the essay ahead. It's as just as a research paper has an abstract at the beginning, which really condenses everything across the research paper. That is what you're doing in your introduction for any essay that you're writing in paper 1 or paper 2. So to summarize what we have seen when it comes to introduction, criterion A, we need to firstly define the key concepts in the question. Then we need to give a thorough outline of what arguments we are going to make in the essay, preferably two arguments. Support studies which we are going to use, we have to specify those also. And then we have to mention anything else we are doing in the essay. That largely depends on the command term and the question. In the sense that here it is discuss schema theory, so we are analyzing schema theory itself. If instead it was just evaluate research into schema theory or evaluate studies that have been done within schema theory, perhaps we would have not included any analysis of the theory itself. It would not be required. So that part towards the end of the introduction is exclusively for the type of question given. Conclusion can be included in any question. You can definitely outline what's going to come in the conclusion. Again, many students tell me in their schools it's suggested that they should just summarize what is in the essay and not present directions for future research. There's no hard and fast rule. I suggest that we do present some directions for future research after considering what strengths and weaknesses are there already in the area. So coming to What this answer shows us about meeting criterion A. Criterion A requires explaining the problem. It is worth 2 marks. I will give this answer 2 out of 2 when it comes to meeting criterion A, because as I have explained, I'll just reiterate quickly. The concepts are defined. What is to come in the essay is very clearly outlined. So it explains the problem. It explains what is going to be discussed about schema theory very clearly, and it deserves a 2 out of 2 on criterion A. Criterion B is about knowledge, and criterion B begins in the next paragraph. It's not that one paragraph has to be for criterion A, another for criterion B. Now throughout we are going to switch between B, C and D criteria. The next paragraph which we are looking at, that is meeting the knowledge requirements, criterion B. Here I have very good advice that I always remember from Professor Popov, what he has suggested. He has suggested that whenever we write an essay, either when we are preparing it, we should not include the studies and the critical analysis, or after writing it, we should just strip away the critical analysis of the studies itself and the studies. And then we should check, do we have anything left in the essay? The biggest problem with most essays is students have developed a kind of formula that we are going to define the key concepts in the question, then we'll give study 1, give some evaluation of the study 2, give some evaluation of the study, perhaps study 3, evaluation of study 3, and conclusion. There are no arguments, there are no points being made at all in the essay, which results in no knowledge being shown at all. Like directly the student jumps to criterion C, which is using research support. But what is the research being used to support is not clear, because no argument or no point is made in the essay. So first of all, does your essay have any arguments? That is what you will come to know if you do the exercise, which I have just mentioned. And if those arguments are there, have you explained those arguments independent of the study? Like what I've highlighted here, you will notice it's a very brief paragraph, but it explains the argument before introducing the study. That is very important. Study should not come in abruptly into the essay. They should be made to support some point. So first let the examiner know what is the point that you're making, then come to the study. Many times students tell me, teachers tell them, your essays are not coherent, they're not going in a flow. Every paragraph should link back to the previous point or previous paragraph made. This is how you'll be able to connect. If you have a point in the first place, if your essay is just like a random assortment of many studies, what are you going to relate with what in that case, right? So make sure you have an argument, you explain it very briefly. You don't have to give too many details, but that shows your knowledge. If you look at criterion B, it's about showing knowledge and understanding. The key word is understanding. Also making good use of terminology. All that you can satisfy all those requirements if you highlight on an argument. Let's see the argument here quickly. Again, I don't intend to read out everything, but it's about reconstruction of memory. How it is because of the use of schemas that we end up distorting our memories after we have recorded them for an event. That is explained here. If you need to read a little more, just pause and read the paragraph. What I want you to notice is it shows knowledge, because what is reconstruction of memory has been clearly defined. It has been explained what is reconstruction of memory. So that is merit-worthy. Also look at the use of terminology. Using the words reconstruction of memory themselves is about terminology. Using words like distortion of information, encoding, terminology. What we mean by use of good terminology, literally using psychological terms. Instead of talking vaguely or casually, after an event has happened, then we change memories, or we alter the memories, we take in other suggestions. Clear terms are used. Encoding of memory. After initial encoding of memory, distortion takes place. Those type of terms have been used. So terminology is expected. Here an advice is that whenever you prepare your knowledge points for the essay, make sure in your outline itself you have terminology. In fact, you can just list out different terms in the outline for your knowledge, and you won't even have to do anything else, because you know their definitions or meanings when you're writing. You just remember the term you have to cover and you give its definition. So in your outline only, you can include words like reconstruction, distortion, encoding. It will make it very easy for you to write your essay. Okay, Bartlett has been named, which is good. I don't emphasize too much on naming researchers and remembering years of research studies. But here why I'm saying it's good, because anyways, War of the Ghost studies by Bartlett. For the key studies, I will insist that you name the researcher. So it's easy to remember that he's the one who's given the theory. So when you remember the name, why not give it in the argument? Okay, now coming to the study which is used to support this argument on how schemas distort memory. The study is summarized in this format, which I think most schools agree with. All students tell me that they summarize study in this way only. Aims, procedure, results, conclusion. That just makes it very systematic. Never give studies haphazardly. Don't give like anywhere the procedure is there, anywhere conclusion is there. Aim, procedure, results, conclusion. Give it systematically. There is a criterion at the end, as you know, criterion E, clarity, in which it is mentioned the examiner should not have to keep on rereading the material to understand it. When you don't give studies in this format, aim, procedure, results, conclusion, the examiner has to keep going back to understand, okay, what was the aim, what was the procedure? That shouldn't be the case. So wherever there are some easy rules to follow, it makes it easy for you also to remember. It's not just for the examiner. You don't miss out on anything when you remember in this format. Follow those rules, stick to them, just to make it easy to score on the last criterion as well, which is clarity and organization. When it comes to clarity and organization, many students believe it's about how many sentences, how many paragraphs. That is what is organization. No, that is very superficial characteristics that you're looking at. Here you can see one paragraph was given for introduction. Then another paragraph was given for introduction only. Now some of you must be wondering, but there should be only one paragraph for introduction. It doesn't matter. This organization is also good because the first paragraph is including definitions, second is outlining the essay. When they are looking for organization, they are looking for how systematically things are presented. Are they going in a logical flow or not, chronological flow or not? When a researcher does a study, what does he do first? He sets an aim, then he executes a procedure, then he collects the results, then he draws a conclusion. That is what we mean by organization. Answer should be organized. When we write an essay, what should come first? Argument should come first. If I give the study first, then I say, this is the argument which the study is supporting. Won't the examiner have to go back and reread the study to see whether it's matching the argument or not? That is organization. Things should come where they belong. They should come in their correct places in logical order. Organization is not about how many paragraphs you're making or how long your sentences are. Don't get distracted by those things. Which also brings one more thing to my mind, which is about word count. Word count ideally for essays should be between 800 to 1200 words. 800 minimum is required to explain properly, like 2 arguments, 2 study, and perhaps some evaluation of the theory itself. Like say instead of discuss, if it was evaluate question, you would also write a lot, not because of course that part gets excluded in which you analyze the overall theory. But then you do substitute by giving more evaluation points of the researchers or the studies. So somewhere you compensate for that lost word count which is there. So definitely minimum 800 words are required. Shorter answers tend to sacrifice and on depth, whatever said and done. Here you will tell me, I know many of you all will download this answer and tell me, but it's much longer than 1200 also. It is, and it is intentionally so. Whenever I get my students to prepare answers in class, I tell them to prepare it a little longer for 2 reasons. One, it is better than preparing a shorter answer because in the exam you condense it further. So from a detail perspective, it's always better to have a reference which is longer because it will inevitably get cut down when you write it in the exam. Second is because other questions can also come, and in the classes we practice questions for all topics, but we are not able to do literally all possibilities for the remaining possibilities. Like if we've done discuss schema theory, for evaluate studies, evaluate research on schema theory. Contrast doesn't come generally for schema, but for those evaluation types, we just prepare outlines then, because repeatedly writing such long essays is not possible. So here, if they write more details, such as the study, you could cut down a little detail actually, but it just helps with the other questions. That's why I tell students to practice this. So coming back to organization, I've given you some tips for organization. Like I told you, now all the criteria get merged after we have written the introduction. That's why how criterion E is to be met, that also I'm explaining right here, because you're trying to satisfy all criteria with all paragraphs now. Okay, Bartlett's War of Ghosts study has been summarized in this paragraph. The next paragraph is about linking back the study to the theory, which I cannot emphasize the importance enough. Many students, they show me their answers also as corrected by their school teachers, and this is the number one comment which is given by the teacher. Study not linked back to the theory. I would say study not linked back to the argument which is made. So this is one explicit paragraph which is linking back. The good thing is also underlining exactly what is linking back. That is excellent. Linking back to the argument cannot be writing the whole study. The study supports the argument. That's not the link. Just see how the linking has been done here. Again, I don't want to read word to word, but I want you to see how the study has been used to further the argument about schema theory. Initially, we just explained the argument very briefly, that the use of schemas after the event has taken place causes distortion of the memory for that event. Exactly what distortion happens in memory, that is explained in the conclusion. Rationalizing things, omitting certain details, familiarizing certain things. Those of you who are doing Bartlett's theory for the schema reconstruction of memory, you must be remembering what errors he has spoken about when it comes to using schema. Omission, rationalization, familiarity. This is adding to the argument which was made initially. So initially we just say, okay, reconstruction of memory is done. Now after demonstrating in this study how reconstruction was done, we point out, okay, so schema causes these types of distortions in memory: omission, rationalization, familiarization. In the essay, in the criteria, you will see it is clearly mentioned for C, criterion C, using research to support the answer, the argument. That research support is considered good, which furthers the argument, which develops the argument further, not which just goes on reiterating the same point. So if I would just say in the conclusion, so now we can see that schema theory causes distortion of memory. How does that add to the argument? Like, how does that develop the argument? It's just repetitive. This is adding to the argument, pointing out the exact problems that are seen in memory because of schema. I couldn't have given this before without the study, because it would not make sense. If I would just say there are omissions, rationalizations, what am I talking about would not be clear. But after I give Bartlett's study, when I talk about these things, now we get clarity on, okay, these are the elements which cause distortion. So again, you can see organization also, right things are coming in the right place. They are following logically where they should come. After they can be understood, then only they are placed. Secondly, development of the argument using research studies. This is called development of the argument. Okay, now coming to, of course, we have to meet criterion D, critical analysis. Again, most students will show me their paper and the top comment will be by the teacher. Evaluation is given, but one, it is generic. Two, it is not linked back to the argument. So now we'll see both the things, how they should be done. Bartlett's study is realistic. That's a strength that begins here. First thing I want you to notice, frivolous strengths and weaknesses are not given. Most students use the grave format for studies. Even I encourage that. You can see my video on it. But we are not evaluating studies for their own sake when the question is discuss schema theory. It is not evaluate studies of schema theory. So you have to use a grave analysis, no doubt, but standalone it does not make any sense. It must link back to the argument. So the most prominent strengths and weaknesses should be taken. Also, this is something I will say directly in a discuss question. When it comes to evaluating the studies, please take only one strength and weakness. Don't take more than that, because you need to leave that room to be able to analyze the theory in general. When you give two strengths, two weaknesses of the studies, you're not leaving that scope in the answer to be able to analyze later the larger theory. Take the strongest strength of the study and the strongest weakness and just limit it to that. When it comes, again, how do you decide which is the strongest strength and weakness? Generally, those strengths and weaknesses which are not touching on generalizability and ethics, they are too study specific. So something that goes beyond generalizability and ethics. Generalizability, I mean sample to population, not setting wise, like not ecological validity. The biggest strength of Bartlett's study is its ecological validity. It's realistic because other studies on memory and schema theory have generally been very artificial, using lists of words, consonant syllabus. It's a one-off study of its type, which is very realistic, using narratives. Now in the paper, if I just write, oh, the study has ecological validity, and I move off to the next point, doesn't make sense. Like I said, many teachers will give feedback, answer is generic. Can you see how this is not made generic or how this is contextualized? People do often narrate to each other incidents that they have read in the papers or stories that they've watched in documentaries, etc. This is what is realistic about the study. Context. It's been pointed out specifically, see, this is what is realistic about this study. If I write a study is ecologically valid, that is one sentence I can give for so many studies across topics. So it's called generic. The same sentence I can lift off and put to many studies. This sentence is specific to Bartlett's study. His study is realistic because it has these elements. This is called contextualizing evaluation. So the strongest strength is taken ecological validity. It is presented in the contextualized way. Now coming to linking back. Is the study being evaluated for its own sake? No. Because the study is realistic, schema theory becomes ecologically valid. This is the way of writing. This is the way of linking back to the theory. The study is realistic. Yes, the study's findings are ecologically valid. But are we arguing for that? We are arguing for larger schema theory. We are arguing for schema theory causing reconstruction of memory. Given that what is happening in this study is realistic, it goes to show that in our everyday settings, in our real life, we must be reconstructing events just like we do in these type of studies. I'm talking about the larger theory when it comes to evaluation. I'm not evaluating the study for its own sake. Let's see one more example of this. The biggest weakness of this study is that the validity is questionable. There are alternative explanations. For example, when people don't remember things like seal hunting or fishing, that is just because that's just too much detail. So it can decay off from memory. It's well known that many things just fade away from memory. It's Bartlett's interpretation that because they are using schemas, they are forgetting such specific details. But can we read their mind directly? Are schemas concrete things which we can observe? No, they are abstract concepts in the mind. So it's an inference. Bartlett is saying that it's because of schemas that these mistakes are being made. Another theorist would say it's simple decay, fading away of memory. This is just too much detail for people to remember, that there was seal hunting and things like that. How do we know whose view is correct? Bartlett's view or another theorist's view? Now, this is contextualization. If I would just say alternative explanations are there, memories can decay also. Which part of this study is showing that maybe memories have decayed and schemas have not been used? Confusing seal hunting for fishing. This is something specific I can say only for this study. This is known as contextualization. Writing without this example would mean we are giving a generic point. So again, I hope you're seeing contextualization. And in conclusion of this evaluation point, am I saying that the study is invalid? No, because the results of the study can have alternative explanation. Perhaps schema theory by itself is invalid, because we are saying schema theory is true because studies like this are showing it. But if the study's results are only in question, we are not sure whether the interpretation of the results is correct. Perhaps schema theory has no basis. So again, I'm evaluating the larger theory in light of this study. This is how we write evaluation points. So my comment for this for critical thinking would be well developed critical thinking. Critical thinking which is contextualized and which keeps on linking back to the larger argument is said to be well developed. And it also furthers the argument, right? Even the evaluation which is done here is going to show me something further about the argument. They've given many areas of evaluation if you see the mark scheme. So in that we have possible alternative explanations. This one is covering alternative explanations. We have methodology as one evaluation area. So when we say something is not ecologically valid, or so which is ecologically valid, it's realistic. Methodological evaluation is what we are doing. So there are, I think, 5 areas of critical thinking. One is coming from the methodology in the first strength. And in the first weakness that we have given, alternative explanations. That is the critical thinking area that has been used. Then comes in the next argument. More or less now the paragraphs are going to replicate the past 3-4 paragraphs. But what you can see here is what's special about the second argument that we given. It should stem from the first argument. Again, your teachers tell you keep linking back. The essay should flow. Every point should be connected to the other. Whatever second argument you're giving, as we discussed earlier, either it's a counter argument to the first, or it's a complementary argument, or it's just showing some other aspect of the theory. So just point out, just make a comment about, okay, this was the previous argument, now this is the other argument, which is showing another aspect, which is contradicting. If it's contradicting what it's contradicting, just write down in a line. If it's supporting, what it is supporting. If it's filling in some gap, which gap is it filling in? Directly address that. We are just on the verge of completing the first argument, right? So why not give it a good finish by saying, okay, this is where this one ends and this is where the next one begins in support of this, or showing something against this. That's a good transition. So here you can see Bartlett's study has mainly focused on retrieval of memory, because he said while remembering things, we tend to remember according to what we have learned in our culture. But what about encoding? Can't schemas also influence what we record in the first place, or what we encode in the first place? That is something which Brewer and Trends have shown. So at the time of encoding also, schemas can impact what we are paying attention to. So argument 2 is defined and it is related with the first argument. So both the things are met. We've seen in argument 1, we need to explain the argument a little before doing the study. That has been done. It's related with the first argument that will help to meet criterion E. It will show again there is good clarity and organization. It's stemming from the first argument. Then there is a summary of Brewer and Trends. I'm not going over it. You can pause and read it. Aims, procedure, results, conclusion. Again, that systematic format has been followed. I have nothing to add to that. What I've said for the previous study, same thing applies here. Now, there is a link back paragraph again, in which it is explained, okay, initially we said schemas can influence both encoding and retrieval. That is the argument. So now we are saying, okay, this is how it is supporting the argument by showing that only schema congruent information is encoded and then that is only retrieved, whereas incongruent information is ignored. Look at the terminology. Again, look at the terminology. Already you must have looked at how encoding, retrieval terms are used. Now, what is use of good terminology here? Schema congruent information. Instead of just saying things which are relevant or aligned with the schema, a proper term has been used. Schema congruent. Same way, schema incongruent. Another term has been used. So terminology is being used throughout. Linking back is being done. New elements are being introduced. It is good development is being done of the argument with the help of the study. Why? Because in the initial argument, we just said it influences encoding and retrieval. Now, what are we adding in light of this study? That it is also schema congruent information which is encoded, and schema incongruent is the one which is deleted. These aspects we can explain only after giving the study, because in the context of the study, we can show, okay, in the office, what is congruent is this. This is what participants remembered. What is incongruent is this. Some skull or some top is lying around. That is what they don't remember. So now we are able to relate back. So again, it's helping to further develop the argument. It's adding new elements to the argument. Again, I'll go over the next one also quickly because it is similar to what we've seen before. The evaluation, like the strongest strength of the study has been taken in terms of reliability because it's a very standardized study. Again, you have to see contextualization. Whenever we talk about reliability, very concrete examples should be there. Supposing we say exposure time is fixed. What was the time? 35 seconds. Preferably mention that. For standardization, reliability, try to give very specific examples of what was done. That really strengthens the point. Again, so context is there. Linking back is there to the larger argument because we are saying that this increases reliability of schema theory itself. It shows that schema consistently applies across participants. Whoever was coming to the office was remembering schema congruent information. So we are not limited to evaluating the study. We are linking back to this argument which is made. And the prominent weakness of this study is that there are some alternative explanations. Sorry, not alternative explanations. There are some areas of uncertainty. Again, if you look at the marking criteria, you'll see one evaluation area for critical thinking is areas of uncertainty. And many students do very weakly on alternative explanations and areas of uncertainty. Both have been identified in this essay, which is excellent. Although there's no separate marking for that. Like you don't get extra points for talking about these critical areas. But many times students ask me, when we think of evaluation, we can just think of standard methodological points. Nothing else comes to mind. So I hope reading essays like these will help you think of how you can think also about the critical areas like areas of uncertainty. Like you'll be able to diversify your critical thinking. Here you can see in Brewer and Trent study, they could show how schemas influenced recall. Recall became poor because of use of schemas. But they couldn't explain how recognition still remained intact. When participants were asked to select from multiple choices, they could remember which items were there in the office even if they were incongruent. That means their schema theory explanation selectively only explains how schema distorts encoding and retrieval of recall, not of recognition. That's an area of uncertainty. Why is that the case? They have not been able to explain. So it limits schema theory itself as an explanation. Again, not just their study. Schema theory, can it explain all sorts of problematic memory, all sorts of distortions in memory? That comes into question. Otherwise, how come in this study on recognition, participants are able to remember everything? So this is how you need to link back. So again, every point is contextualized. Every point is linked back to the argument made. Again, excellent critical thinking has been shown here. I would call it well-developed critical thinking. And what I mentioned earlier, I would like to add also. This essay contains some lesser touched areas of critical thinking. Which can really push it towards higher marks. Like I said, does not receive extra credit. Like it's not like one area is better than the other. But overall, it gives very good clarity. Like very strong points are being made because of this. So on criterion A, E, D and E, for example, it can score very highly because of this. Now coming to, since it's a discussion question, we also need to discuss overall about schema theory, above and beyond what we have seen in these two studies, Bartlett and Brewer and Trent. What else are the merits and demerits of schema theory? There's no hard and fast rule as to how many merits and demerits you have to give. And do you have to give merits and demerits both, or can you just give some merits or some demerits? No rules. I would suggest though, same rule I would apply which I apply to studies. Give the strongest strength and the strongest weakness of the theory. Don't give more than that. Again, you'll end up sacrificing depth for breadth. I know there's too much. Like if you do a magic evaluation, I will cover that also soon. I've done grave evaluation for studies already. I'll do a magic evaluation for theories. So if you do a magic evaluation of the theory, you can come up to 6 points to evaluate the theory. But just select the most prominent strength and weakness. Make the essay powerful. Don't sacrifice quality for quantity. And I would suggest to keep a balanced perspective, give one strength and one weakness, though it is not compulsory. So I'm just applying the same rule that I applied for all the studies. A strength of schema theory beyond what we've already discussed. We've already evaluated schema theory itself, not just the studies. But beyond what these studies have shown, it has a lot of practical relevance. Here, the example of stereotyping has been taken, and further, because it's a question of practical relevance or application, some intervention has to be suggested. We can't just say that it explains stereotypes. That's not a practical application. So, education can be done. People can be helped to assess where they tend to stereotype others and how that could be leading to self-fulfilling prophecies. Again, this has been made very concrete with an example that, stereotypes like girls do poorly in maths, that could be causing girls to actually underperform in academics. So again, there's contextualization, there is like concrete example is given, and there's explicit linking to schema theory. The issue which has been taken, application or practical relevance, a very aligned point is given with that. Like I said, not generally about the theory, explicitly where intervention can be done, that has been mentioned. So this paragraph is worth the merit. So far in this video, I haven't used the Peel format. I haven't mentioned that, but of course you can use that. I'm avoiding. I'm just talking about it in terms of contextualization and linking. It's the same thing as saying write in Peel format. So if you understand what Peel format is, you will see in studies and theory both, Peel format has been used. That's why the points are very effective. Signposting is there to begin with, this is the strength or weakness is named, then context is there, then linking back is there. That is what Peel format is. Weakness of schema theory has been taken as there are possible alternative explanations. No doubt this point was taken in light of Bartlett's theory also, but here another memory theory which comes very close to explaining what schemas can explain alternatively, cue dependent forgetting. That has been taken over here. Schema theory, we saw that it does not account for recognition recall failures. It accounts for recall failures, it does not account for how recognition is successful. So cue dependent memory seems to be a better explanation of memory rather than schemas. That is what is explained here. You can read it at leisure. Here you can see I have not used any full-fledged studies to support these general theory points, but we can make a link to Brewer and Trent. Since we've already mentioned it, we can always give an example and say, okay, that's related to what we've seen earlier also. That's perfectly admissible. So these two paragraphs which we have just seen, these both paragraphs are evidence of solid critical thinking meeting the requirements of a discuss question. Like they are showing how discussion should be done of the theory in question, because it's not discuss studies done on schema. In fact, discuss doesn't come for studies. Discuss schema theories. So this is solid critical thinking about schema theory as a whole. Very much required for a discuss question. And it's also a balanced perspective. In terms of criterion D, where they require critical thinking not of individual studies of the theory, it really furthers the argument in the sense that it furthers critical thinking beyond the studies about schema theory. Like now, if you look at it overall, the essay is not only about 2 or 3 studies and how they have supported or not lent support to schema theory. It's much beyond that. There's so many things spoken about schema theory in this essay. Finally, let's see the summary. Like as mentioned here, to summarize, schema theory is a plausible explanation for how information is remembered. Why we are saying it's plausible? As a very brief summary of what we have given above. Yes, we can summarize the main arguments and all again, but not required. Overall, I've given one line, that's also enough, that it's plausible. This one word plausible indicates that, okay, it might not be perfect, because as we saw, there are alternative explanations, and also it is like not to be totally discarded because there is some merit. As we saw, there are some strengths, especially coming from the studies. So that one word plausible really summarizes all possibilities. I said that I will be mentioning about future research as well, though some examiners feel that is not to be done. So in terms of future research, it does give the direction that we need some studies which can go over and above the findings given by Brewer and Trends and Bartlett. Schemas will never be directly observable. So some ingenious ways have to be thought of as to how we can uh, concretely present that it's indeed because of schemas that memory is changing, and those alternative explanations like decay or Q dependent are not holding merit against schema theory. So we need more solid, more internally valid type of research which can support this. So the conclusion by itself we cannot rate it, but I would just now summarize the markings for all the criteria. For criteria A, I have already given, it is a 2 on 2. I have explained why. For criterion B, knowledge, because full understanding and knowledge has been shown in this answer, not only of the studies, of the larger arguments or aspects of the theory. So it will get 6 out of 6. For criterion C, use of research, the research evidence is relevant. Whatever arguments are being made, the research is supporting those arguments only. And the research studies are not repetitive, like both the studies are not supporting the same argument. So there also it gets a 6 out of 6. For criterion D, which is about critical thinking, all critical thinking is related to the larger theory. As I kept on pointing out, each piece of critical thinking is further developing the arguments, further taking the theory ahead. Same was the case with the research evidence. And all the critical thinking was related to the areas which you can see in the guide, those 5 areas of critical thinking. All the critical thinking was coming from there only. So that also gets 6 out of 6. Finally, for criterion E, 2 out of 2, because clarity and logic was there, as I pointed out, in a systematic and coherent manner, like it's clear and organized. Okay, more about this, as I told you, I'll put up the document. I will modify some of the comments also so it is more relevant to you, what is seen in this answer. So definitely download the PDF, like even if you've understood the video independently of the PDF, you can download that PDF in which you'll get to see more proper analysis through my comments. If you have any feedback about this video, you can leave it in the comments below. And if you want tuition for IB psychology, you can contact me on my email ID or personal number, which I'm leaving in the pinned comment and description box below. I'm sorry, I'm in a rush right now, so I just have to leave. And I'll come back very soon with another video. In the meanwhile, you can study from the PDF of this answer. Goodbye, see you soon.